and welcome to our PDA Town Hall for November 2nd, 2025. And we've got quite a show for you today. As we billboarded, we'll be hearing from Representative Jim McGovern a little later in the hour. Jim McGovern has simply been really one of the greatest advocates for the maintenance of the American social safety net in the era under which there's been so many attacks against it ever since, of course, Ronald Reagan was president, but really through to how it's all been navigated over the past few decades since he's been in Congress. And in particular, most particularly, he has been the greatest champion of the SNAP payment programs, which we used to be called food stamps, in Congress. And as of yesterday, they were, of course, scheduled to cease being paid out per the direction of the Trump administration. And we'll hear from Representative McGovern in a bit on that. And again, he is a fantastic PDA progressive inside Congress, and he is a very, very working and sincere public servant, and really, really stands out in the Congress as a model for the type of congressperson we would really want to see holding every seat in Congress, with the one stipulation that maybe some of you don't know that much about Jim McGovern, because he's not the kind of congressperson who just puts himself in front of the camera all the time. He's just an absolute model representative of the kind of person you'd want representing your community at the federal level or state or local level. So we'll be hearing from Jim McGovern in a bit. And then we'll also hear from Cliff Tasner. Cliff is the person who organizes the Southern California Americans for Democratic Action, which is, of course, somewhat of a precursor organization to PDA, founded originally by Eleanor Roosevelt and Walter Reuther. And he does this incredible work where he's a songwriter and he's a musician, and he does an incredible amount of satirical political songs. But he's taken those skills and he's turned them into advertisements, which are multilingual around California Prop 50. And in many respects, he's here to show the work, because I think it's very important for people to meet Cliff and to be aware of the kind of work he can do for progressive candidates across the country who might need their advertisements to be multilingual, which has been a big failing of the Democratic Party in innumerable districts and in states across the country. So he'll be here to talk about that. And but even before that, we are so thrilled that we'll be joined by Reverend Rodney Sadler. Reverend Rodney Sadler has been a part of the PDA team for years. He's the vice chair, I believe, of our advisory board, and he has decided to step up and run for the state assembly in the state of North Carolina. And he is a long time just committed across the board progressive activist. And he, maybe perhaps most notably, was very involved with the Moral Mondays campaign and the foundation of the Reverend Barber's anti-poverty organization. And so he's worked very closely with Reverend Barber in North Carolina. And we'll be hearing from Rodney about his exciting campaign for elected office in the state of North Carolina, and we'll also ask him about, how things are in North Carolina. And there's so many crisis points within the country, in many regards, everywhere where there are these kind of right-wing pressure points against democracy, and really working against the electoral system in the country too. The Trump administration has amplified it, but North Carolina has been a troubled space in that regard from before the Trump administration, even Trump #1, but it is now getting substantially worse. And so it's very exciting that he is stepping up to run for office in this context. And I think the people of North Carolina, and of course his district, are going to discover an amazing, amazing advocate for people. And then, by the way, after that, after we hear from Rep. McGovern, we're going to go to just a dialogue with everybody here. We'll have a discussion amongst all of ourselves, but with a particular focus on, of course, what's happening on Tuesday across the country, which, things are poised to be, not just a victory for Democrats in New Jersey and Virginia. The races are close, and it's very important that we mobilize in support of Democratic candidates in those states, and progressives on the ballot in Pennsylvania in the Supreme Court race, Prop 50 in California, actually some important elections down in Georgia, and then in New York City. And as I mentioned, New York City, this is not poised to be just a victory for Democrats across the country and a rejoinder to Trump, but especially with Mamdani in New York, Tuesday could very well be one of the greatest. I think there's just a set of victories we can point to over the rise of the progressive movement in the United States of America. I think number one, the successful drafting of Bernie Sanders by this organization, Progressive Democrats of America. Then Bernie's performance in the primaries in 2016, exceeding all expectations. Then the election across the squad in 2018. Again, the huge successes of Sanders in 2020, poised actually to win the nomination until, well, we know the story of what happened there. And other progressive victories across this era, and the rise of progressive politicians, it should be noted in the context of Mamdani, city councilmen, councils, and boards of aldermen, some of the largest cities in our country have some great progressives, even left radical people. And this is poised to be, I think, really, I suppose it would match up with just Bernie's victories in the primaries, the appearance of the squad, and now Mamdani. It's going to be one of the greatest days in recent American political history as far as from a PDA perspective. So we'll talk about that and as part of the dialogue during the question and answers. I got to get the mic in a second for our PDA to-dos. And then Donna, and maybe Donna and I can co-introduce Rodney Sadler, Reverend Rodney Sadler. But look, I'm going to be remiss if I didn't mention right now. I'm a little wary here, folks. I live very close to Chavez Ravine, where Dodger Stadium is. And last night's Game 7 of the World Series, if you read about it, if you watched it, you know this. Probably point by point across a whole sporting event. I've never seen anything as dramatic as that. And the release of Joy in Southern California last night upon their victory, which was razor's edge right until the final double play, was unlike anything I'd seen. And the Dodgers won the World Series last year. They won it in 2020. The Rams won the Super Bowl. The Rams didn't even compare. This as a Dodgers town, not a football town. And the explosion of joy in my neighborhood was just insane. And it was very exhilarating. And yes, both the Toronto near victory and the Los Angeles victory were cast in many people's minds as a rejoinder to the Trump administration, and the celebrations in the east side of LA where I live, where that was an inflected part of it. And look, if you don't particularly like baseball among the popular spectacle sports in the world, this was as good an advertisement. And I actually do love the sport. Soccer and baseball are my two favorite sports, and that was just an insanely dramatic competition. And Los Angeles loves its team, and the kind of connection you get with the players across the postseason. By the way, I wasn't really even rooting for the Dodgers. I like the Blue Jays a lot too. But to be around this last night was incredible, and it was hard to take my mind off of it, I admit, this morning, and still to this point. But that's all I'll say about it, unless we bring it back up in the Q&As. Okay, Mike Fox, over to you for our PDA to-dos.
Yep, sorry, I was multitasking. One moment, please. All right, I think I'm live. Can you hear me?
I can, and see you as well.
Hot diggity. All right. To-dos, gang. Tuesday, obviously. But let's start with our consistent to-do each and every week. And what is it? Revel in the fact that you're surrounded by people who get it. Here, we're in tough times. We readily recognize we aren't Pollyanna about that here at PDA. Yep, tough road ahead. But all the more reason why, as we do turn this ship around, and yep, it's going to happen, but the only way it happens is if we show solidarity with each other, right? So, number one, if you've had a tough week, take a breath and just, as I said, take to your bone marrow that this is a space of support. And I thank everyone for being here. You make me healthier just by being here. And I thank you for that. So every Sunday, 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific, swing by and feel some love. Okay. Number two, take notes. We're going to come at you with a lot of to-dos over throughout this program and then when we go into family time. Okay, so please do grab a pen and a piece of paper if you're like me, or get a notepad open, so that we know what those to-dos are over the next couple of days. From a time and a treasure standpoint, we're focusing like a laser on Tuesday, 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 Tuesday. We need phone bankers. We need everybody here in the game, just making an hour, just make an hour worth of calls. We have the opportunity to continue building the blue wave that never gets talked about in the mainstream media, but we've been crushing it since last November, gang. Just know that. And why we've been crushing it? Because the folks on this call have been in the game, getting folks out to vote. All right. So let's bring this home in a big way on Tuesday. Go to pdamerica.org/volunteer. Toss in an hour on any specific day. I would suggest highly pick Monday or Tuesday. But guess what? On Wednesday, we ain't taking a day off, gang. I mean, we can hopefully revel in the fact that we got a bunch of victories on Tuesday night, right? Well, we're going to take a victory lap quickly and then pile headlong into Afton Bain in Tennessee 7, the special election that's coming early December, right? That can be the icing on the cupcake of 2025, right there. That will be huge if we flip that district. So I would ask we all pile into Monday and Tuesday, hit it hard, leave everything on the field, say woohoo at the end of the night, and Wednesday, bang, we're back in. Okay. And I know we can all do it. All right. So if you're a phone banker, type in the chat that you phone bank and tell folks why. Okay. We need everybody in the game. All right. That's the time element. Treasure is the other part of the time and treasure pairing, right? From a treasure standpoint, please do anything that you can do, even if it's $1. Just bottom line solidarity is what we're looking for here. If you can't toss in an hour between now and the end of the day on Tuesday, then great. Toss in 10, $15 so that if we can't get the calls made in a volunteer way, and the vast majority of our work is done by volunteers, and thank you to all of you. If we can't get it done that way, well, then fine. You know, you have to get hired. So let's make sure that we have those resources to bring home that victories plural on Tuesday. And then we're going to be in the game huge with Afton starting on Wednesday, and we'll do a debrief Thursday night on our campaign call, 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific. We'll get back to where we're at on our goals at the top of the hour, and then in family time, really dig down in and make sure that we nail all of them. So that being said, back to you, Alan.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mike Fox. And with that, I welcome to the town hall, as always, at this time, Donna Smith, who is the chair of the PDA Advisory Board. Donna, what is on your mind? And
Well,
I could. Do you want to go?
congrats to you in LA, right?
Yeah, it really, this was something else to see all these people around us so happy here in LA. But I know Rodney Sadler is somebody that we both know, and
Yes, absolutely.
and so let me just say, if you want to introduce Rodney after your thoughts and reflections on the week, please do so. And so let me just say, folks, in advance of that, Rodney Sadler has just been one of the strongest allies PDA has had for ever since well before I was executive director. And he is just simply put, as a practicing reverend, and as a very active political activist and organizer, one of the most insightful and just well thought out, and an eloquent analysts of American society, 21st century American society. And I think it's a blessing to the people of his district that he's running for office. And we at PDA are going to do everything we can to support his campaign. And Donna, take it away.
Well, that's a fabulous intro all by itself of Rodney. That's terrific.
So there,
I couldn't agree more with what you said, Alan. It's really good. And to have, words later from Jim McGovern, you're right. He has been one of the dearest friends to PDA from the earliest times, and always very kind to every executive director, interim or standing, that was part of PDA and lifted us and listened to us and listen to constituents. So I can't wait to hear what he has to say too. I want to give kudos again to someone that I do several times on our national call, but to our state coordinator here in Colorado, Susan Gilbert. We had a event yesterday here in Colorado, in Aurora, Colorado, where yes, we have city council elections coming up this Tuesday. And we do have an endorsed candidate by our local PAC of Progressive Vote here in Colorado. And we had this event where people just came together, it really wasn't meant to be political so much as just get together and create community. And we had cookies, we had coffee, we had time to we made Hawaiian leis out of paper, and we colored, and we just spent time with each other talking. And we met people. My husband and I, it's really the first time he's been able to go to something since he was so ill. Thank goodness, because he could do stuff that was relatively easy and hands-on. But also, we met people from Ethiopia, from San Salvador, El Salvador, from Germany. These are all people part of the Aurora community here in Colorado. There were no gang members at our event. We were all enjoying one another. There was a gentleman there who, native to Hawaii, who was playing the ukulele from time to time and talking to us a little bit about his childhood. But what was really interesting as we talked to each other is very gradually people built a little bit of trust with one another and started to talk about other things with each other. And the young woman who was from Germany, she was studying pharmaceutical science here at the University of Colorado. And I said to her, for the first time in my life, I understand what happened in your country's history. And before I could even finish the sentence, she nodded enthusiastic up and down and said, yes, you do. That was so mind-blowing to me to see someone just acknowledge, right? Just acknowledge that when people don't speak up for one another, when people don't stand in community, when people don't recognize what's happening to people around them, things can go down a really, really terrible path. And it just was, it blew my mind. It just stopped me for a second listening to her. And she's anxious to go home. I said, boy, you have a better healthcare. We talked about healthcare, better healthcare system than we do. She nodded very quickly. Yes, we do. I mean, she's only been here for a few months and she knows it. It's just, and she's anxious to go home. Even though she has enjoyed her time here as an intern, she's ready and she's going in the beginning of December. So just those kinds of conversations. And then another woman, the one from El Salvador, was talking about she works with refugee communities in Aurora. And we talked about that. The young man who's from Hawaii, he's the only one in his family who's here from Hawaii. And he's very much missing that culture of aloha and of peace and of more gentility he felt at home among his family members. So the conversations became very different than just, who are you? What do you do for work? I just want to praise Susan, and we have another person who works with us, Nancy Hernandez from Colorado Springs, who helps with the programming for our state chapter. It's just lovely. It was just lovely. And we need to do more of that with each other. And I know that's one thing. And as we get ready to hand off to Rodney, I know that's one thing that Rodney has always been, his life, he has served community already. It's not an easy gig in this world to be a pastor. It really isn't. People look at pastors and think, well, they work on Sundays and, oh my goodness, that's not true. They work every day of the week and 24 hours a day when need be. And sometimes at the most, yes, at the most joyful times in life, but sometimes at the most awful, terrible, scary, just mind bending times in life. And I know Rodney has been that strength for so many people around him. He's also been a great dad. I love to follow him on Facebook and watch what he's doing as a dad to a daughter, which is lovely. I always love to see girl dads doing great things. That's a good thing. And, as a member of our advisory board, we've never had a supremely active advisory board. We've always more used the advisory board as people we know are our friends, our allies who are always there for us. Should we need people to step in and tell us, hey, we got a real serious problem here at PDA. We don't know whether to go with this or this. Then we know that Rodney would be among the people that we would lean on very heavily to say, what do you think? You know the history, you knew Tim, you know all of us. What do you think about this? So that he's running for the state legislature, very cool, very cool. And I know that we'll have activists there who will help you, Rodney. I'm so glad you're running. It's wonderful to see you again. And Alan, with that, I'll hand it back to you and you can hand it off to Rodney.
For sure. And Rodney Sadler, the floor is yours. We're honored to have you here.
Well, thank you so much. It's wonderful to be with you all. Alan, Donna, Mike, it's great to see you guys again. I want to say thank you for this time to be able to speak with PDA and tell you a little bit about what we're trying to do here in North Carolina. I want to start off by saying this is nothing I wanted to do. I was not sitting around thinking about running for the General Assembly. Matter of fact, first time I went in the General Assembly building was April 29th, 2013. And I went in with about 29 other people. We walked in the building, we prayed, we sang songs, and went to advise our electors on how we wanted them to govern us, and they arrested us. So my first time in there was an arrest, and I never could imagine that I would ever want to go back and work in it. But literally in the last few months, I've seen what's been going on in our country and what's going on in the state of North Carolina. And we've had some bad things happening. And the worst thing is that we fought for a number of years to overcome the supermajority of the Republican extremists in our state General Assembly. And in this last year, the last couple of months, we've had a number of Democrats break ranks with the rest of the Democrats and vote with the Republicans to override the vetoes. Our governor, Democrat Josh Stein's vetoes are reserved for those bills that are most egregious, that will harm the most people. And to think that a Democrat would break ranks and allow some of these bills to go through is horrible. I first saw this when I heard about our representative was going to potentially vote against what we called HB 318, which said that our local law enforcement had to cooperate with ICE. And she basically, I called her, I talked to her, I said, please don't do this. She basically said, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. Don't try to convince me. When it came time for the vote, she actually voted against the governor's veto. And not only did she do that, but she stood up and said that there are some cultures that are just better than other cultures. She said that there are some people that just need to come here and learn how to assimilate if they want to live here. She also went further to say that our African-American ancestors would have agreed with that stance. That offended me more than just about anything, to think that our ancestors who fought for equality and justice for everyone would stand up for bigotry. So when I first decided to run, it was because I started getting calls from people asking me if I would get in the race at this point in time and help to displace this corporatist Democrat who had sold out on our issues and interests and concern. I thought it might be good to work for the working people of the state of North Carolina. It might be good to support them however I could. But then I began to see that this is not just a local race. This is a statewide race. Because if the governor's vetoes can't be sustained, the narrow competitive edge that we have to finally override, to sustain those vetoes in this seriously Republican-heavy state, that means that we lose the little bit of power that we fought for to get. And then more recently, I realized after a week and a half ago, when our General Assembly met and they decided to follow Donald Trump's request to change our congressional districts, to gerrymander yet another Democrat out so that they would have another Republican representative district in our US Congress, I realized that this is not just a local race or a state race, this is a national race. What we do here in the state of North Carolina has an impact on what goes on across the country. So I'm into this race for all of those reasons. And I hope that you all will stand with me. We need to have a victory here. We need to be able to overcome this Republicans that have used the state of North Carolina as a testing ground for the worst policies that they could come up with as extremists since 2013, when we started the Moral Monday movement, until this very day. We need to be able to work together. And I want to invite you all to join with us in this larger work. I don't want to stop there. I don't want to have a campaign. I want to start a movement. I want a movement for justice. I want a movement that says a working person should be able, with one job, to afford to live. I want a movement that says that we need houses that people can afford, apartments and rents that are affordable and not overpriced by foreign people investing in our local real estate market. I want to make sure that everybody has access to health care and that it's not overly expensive, that people don't lose access to Medicaid expansion. I want to make sure that we deal with our environment and make sure that we are moving away from fossil fuel industry towards clean and renewable energy. These are the things that are on my heart and soul. I want to work for the working people of North Carolina, and I want to put the people first. And I can only do that if I have the support of the nation behind me. If we can come together, work together, we don't have to fight the poor anymore. We can fight poverty. If we can come together as a nation, we can begin to say, let's change this tide and move away from hatred and xenophobia and division as a nation towards a greater system. I would love, I know I'm a preacher, so I have to say this. I love the notion of love. And I want to work for love made public. I want to figure out a way to make love our public policy basis. And you might say, that sounds kind of silly, Dr. Sadler. That's no, but love is having a living wage for workers. And love is making sure that healthcare is a living right. And love is making sure that people can afford a place to live. Love is making sure that people have their needs met, that people are more important than profits, and that we protect the environment in which we live. So these are the things that I stand for. And I pray that you all will work with me, pray with me, share the news with people you know in our district, encourage people to get out and vote for our campaign. Join this campaign for we, the people of North Carolina, and we, the people of America. Thank you so much for your time today, and I'm so grateful to be here with you. God bless you.
I have just one quick follow-up, Ben. First of all, to alert people in the chat that a gentleman named Paul Alexander himself, a fantastic just somebody who's worked inside electoral politics in New York State legislature, an unbelievable advocate for everything that Rodney just outlined. But I know him particularly from his incredible advocacy in terms of environmental justice and the environment in general, but just a fantastic progressive who's worked inside the system, knows the ropes. And so when you see a chat from Paul Alexander, that's the proper information to get in contact with Rodney's campaign, Reverend Sadler's campaign, and other information about support for the campaign and an upcoming fundraiser, which we can also talk about next week. Again, you don't have to join us because I know you'll be busy for what I'm about to say. It actually follows our town hall next Sunday, where the scheduled guest, not 100% confirmed, is actually Cori Bush, the former representative. And but my follow-up question is simple. Explain to people, and I get sometimes a little confused about how North Carolinians speak about their state's geography. So
Yes.
Where in the state is the seat that you are running? And simply that. And and is anybody else stamping up in the Democratic primary to challenge the incumbent?
Yes. So a few things on that. The first thing I want to say is I bring you greetings from Joel Siegel, who is one of the founding members, one of the long-term people behind PDA, one of my best friends who's been sick recently. He's trying to get his strength back. We live in Mecklenburg County, which is the southern portion of the state. We're pretty much so far south that we could be almost in South Carolina. I'm in the northeasternmost part of that district in Mecklenburg County. So District 106 is right there. And North Carolina is an interesting state. We have a Democratic governor and a very, very, very Republican gerrymandered General Assembly that we're fighting tooth and nail to try to overcome because of the things that they've been trying to do. They used to just get bills sent down by the American Legislative Exchange Council, and they wouldn't even put the name of the state in it. They just passed these bills on the floor of the House without thinking about the impact on the state of North Carolina. So where we are is in a place that represents the largest district within the state of North Carolina, the largest metropolitan statistical area around Raleigh, Mecklenburg and Raleigh, North Carolina, but Mecklenburg County has about a little over 1 million people here. So the largest city in the state as well.
And that's Charlotte. Is the largest.
Yes, right now I'm running against Carla Cunningham, who's the incumbent. It's hard to run against a black woman, but a black woman has shown herself to be bigoted. I've got to work to get her out. We've got 2 other people that have talked about entering the race, and they're trying to get into it. I've been told that I need to make sure that I stay in. I wish I could jump out of it, but I want to stay in to make sure that we have a progressive voice that stands for working people in the state. So.
Well, you certainly have the full support of PDA, and PDA in North Carolina has been working closely with the Progressive Caucus of the Democratic Party, which has actually done some very impressive things in the state. It was the second state in the country to pass a resolution calling for this. Of course, there's laws involved of keeping big money out of Democratic Party primaries, following
Yes.
Arizona, which was the first, and PDA has been involved in that as well. And while I think the leadership of the Progressive Caucus is outside of Metro Charlotte, we certainly look forward to introducing that team to your campaign as well. So, yeah, well, thank you so much. Look, we are honored to have you here again. We'll give an update next week because of the fundraiser the next day. But let's during the campaign. Oh, yes, one final question. When is the primary? We all need to. Everybody on the call, of course, needs to right now make a big mental note. And every week forward, I should say this: don't ever forget, primaries across the country are different. Yes, the 2026 federal election for the U.S. House of Representatives on November is a national election, but these things go from like early March all the way to September. So when is North Carolina?
So North Carolina's primary is going to be on March 3rd, and this is really going to be an election won in the primary. Our district is about 78% Democratic, so if we can win the primary, we should have an easier walk in November towards the general election. So March the 3rd. Please remember, March the 3rd is when we're going forward. We're really trying to get our campaign up and running now, pushing for as much support as we can get before the holidays come up. And if you could join the fundraiser next week, would love to have you there for that. If you could support the campaign in any way, would love to have you do that. I'm very grateful for the support of PDA. I'm very grateful for the work that you continue to do on a regular basis to make sure that the people's interests are cared for. Thank you so very much, and God bless. I might have to leave and go into a ordination service right now.
Oh, thank you so much, and thank you for your time. And we will be talking with you across the next few months many times. So thank you so much, Reverend Sadler. And everybody, look up the campaign, follow the links from Paul Alexander, and thank you, Reverend Sadler, again. And thank you, Paul Alexander,
God bless you all,
for supporting in the background. And I do want to say to everybody, just to clarify, that was in the Progressive Caucus of the North Carolina Democratic Party through the auspices of the Progressive Caucus, with, again, the PDA statewide chapter playing a role, a considerable role. The state party passed the resolution. So, this is the thing, again, about Democratic state parties. I know we're all frustrated with the official apparatus of the Democratic Party and the Democratic establishment, but within the ranks of the people who actually go to the meetings and even at statewide meetings, they're more progressives than you know, and you can get these kind of resolutions passed. And what that also tells is that within the apparatus of the state Democratic Party, there's going to be an appetite in support of even a candidate against a sitting incumbent and a candidate like Reverend Sadler. So we'll be coordinating with those people across the state on behalf of the Reverend's campaign. And everybody, look it all up, all the links from Paul there, and we'll be keeping you up to speed pretty much probably at least every other week. We'll have a Reverend Sadler campaign update here and between now and March 3rd. Okay, great, everybody. So next up, we do have a packed show here, so we're going to introduce Clifford Tasner. And Cliff Tasner is many things. He is the brain and voice behind the it was the billionaires. Was it Billionaires Against Bush?
Yeah,
Wow, it's like,
billionaires for Bush. Now we're trillionaires for Trump, by the way.
there we
We're
go.
still doing
Thanks.
our wacky madness. It's
Well,
still
here's
happening.
Cliff Tasman. But alas, you see, he's assisting here in his own introduction. But he's also, by the way, a fantastic musician and composer of scores and films and TV and all that. And he is he's the head of the Southern California branch of Americans for Democratic Action. My father, having been back in the day the head of the Northern California branch of the Americans for Democratic Action. And if people who don't know ADA, Walter Reuther, Elizabeth, Eleanor Roosevelt founded it after World War II. Obviously, two great heroes of American 20th century history. And it is an organization that PDA in Southern California partners with quite a lot. ADA has been always very active in California. I know less so across the rest of the country, but one of our staunchest allies here at PDA. So Clifford Tasner is here to tell us about his project that is related to California Prop 50, but also to alert all of you about this kind of work. And look, I got in a dialogue that no doubt that was frustrating a little bit for Cliff because I've been so busy the past few weeks. But about 3 weeks ago, I was introduced to this, and I had just been on a national roundtable call where it was brought up by a woman that there was an absence of multilingual advertising in California around Prop 50. This was a huge deficit, and it was needed. And this is true across the country. And for people who have followed the sort of politics of demography in America, and were shocked at the degree to which, for instance, Latino voters and Latino males voted for Donald Trump in the last election, I think the polls have shown that this has swung back around again. And the California going from a red state to a purple state to a blue state happened in large part because Latinos in California were appalled by something called Prop 187 a few decades ago. I think we're having that moment in America nationally right now, where people of color are recognizing the Republican Party and the Trump administration as a virulently racist formation. And now it's incumbent, of course, upon us as progressive Democrats to make the Democratic Party responsive to communities of color, foregrounding, lifting up, making central, not marginal to the whole process. And on top of that, in particular, having programs to support working class communities of color. But the work that Clifford is doing will assist in elevating and in showing the respect of the Democratic Party and progressive Democrats to communities of color and multilingual communities across the country. And so I want everybody here to take note of Cliff's work and think about how it may be applicable to campaigns around the country in the next election cycle. So take it away, Cliff.
Well, that is quite the introduction. You probably, if there's people all over the country, not everybody may be aware of what Prop 50 is, but basically in response to all this red state gerrymandering, like Texas getting rid of 5 Democratic districts, and Ohio's about to do it, Indiana's doing it, North Carolina, it is sickening because we're just taking away the voice of so many people of color because a lot of these Democratic districts in these red states are representing people of color. So California is enacting Prop 50. A number of years ago, we enacted a measure to have a nonpartisan redistricting commission rather than letting the legislature do it. And it's a great thing if the entire country were doing it. We would have a much fairer Congress that is representing more people. But California was doing it by ourselves while Texas is gerrymandering and all these other red states are gerrymandering. So Prop 50 will temporarily suspend our nonpartisan redistricting and allow the legislature to draw districts that will create 5 more Democratic districts, which is something we need to do because otherwise we're not going to have a very balanced election this next election. So I know the polls indicate it's ahead, but I don't believe it's a sure thing because at this point, maybe 25% of Californians have voted. And it's going to be a low turnout election because it's an off year. And even an army of union members and Democratic activists who are door knocking, and when there's a lot of people, you can't even get to the door because they're in locked buildings, and phone banking, when people don't answer the phone very much anymore, it's not a done deal. And Trump's DOJ is sending quote unquote election observers to all of the counties that have high Latino populations. And you know what that means? That means voter intimidation. That means a whole lot of people are going to be intimidated when they come out to vote. So basically, it's going to depress turnout. Yes, it will. It may win. It probably win. It's ahead in the polls. But the reason we're engaging people, we started trying to engage people before we knew where it was in the polls. We started reaching out because the Democratic Party has not done any advertising beyond English and Spanish. The entire campaign, I found out they ran a print ad in one Cantonese newspaper in the Bay Area. So we created ads in Cantonese, in Korean, in Vietnamese, in Armenian, in Tagalog, and of course English and Spanish. And we're working with a not-for-profit, and I posted some contact if you're interested in supporting this process. We have a targeted campaign. We're reaching out to low propensity voters in some of these communities throughout California. And it's not just important to engage them, even if we're winning with this. It's important to engage these people because we need them getting used to voting next year. And these are the people who are less likely to vote, the people who rarely vote. And we need them next year because next year we may have 5 more congressional districts to elect Democrats to. So we got to make that happen. So anyway, so that's what we're doing. When we found out nobody was doing it, we stepped up. We're working on it. And I thought Alan could show you a couple of the ads. You have them right there?
I do. It, of course, takes a little second for me to get this up,
Okay.
and
But anyway,
I-
we're trying to do a ramp up to a big push tomorrow to re-engage the people we've already reached out to. So if you can help us, that'd be great. If you want to contact me, that'd be great. If you have a campaign that you'd like to engage me on, I don't just do all these other languages. We also do stuff in English. And we did all the multilingual ads for Prop 33 last year, which was a rent control initiative. We did it in 6 languages, 5 ads in 6 languages. And they ran it on local TV, Armenian TV, Cantonese TV, Mandarin TV. And we did this. Unfortunately, the landlord spent $100 million to defeat the measure, but we're reaching out in a way that people need to reach out. And we're hoping we can get our voice heard. Okay, so here we go.
Here we go in English first.
We need a Congress that will stand up to Donald Trump's assault on democracy, but red state gerrymanders make it much harder to elect a new Congress. California's Proposition 50 will help restore balance to next year's congressional elections. Vote yes on Proposition 50.
Alan, I hate to ask you, but when you show something from your computer, are you also sharing the sound? Because the sound's not real good. You have to, when you do share, when you share your screen, there's an option on the right side where you can click share sound, because there's a whole score
Wait,
on
did
this.
people hear that?
Heard it fine.
Okay, then why don't you play the Spanish one?
I will. Hold on. This is a little tricky here, and then I have to get down like this, then do this. And this is Spanish. As Cliff said, of course, there's multiple languages. And let me do this. And here we go. Spanish.
Necesitamos un Congreso que se enfrente al ataque de Donald Trump contra la democracia. Pero la manipulación de distritos en los estados republicanos hace mucho más difícil elegir un nuevo Congreso. La Proposición 50 de California ayudará a restaurar el balance en las elecciones al Congreso del próximo año. Vota sí a Proposición 50.
So there you go. There's our little thing that we rushed out quickly to just try to make a difference and get people engaged that need to be engaged. Anyway, Alan, I really appreciate you giving us a little time to talk about this. And people can reach me, people can contribute if they want, people can see more of the work that we've done. And I'm hoping that we'll have a lot we can do next year, because we've got to get everybody all over the country engaged. And that means a lot of people who are not engaged right now. So
Thank you so much. And let's try to have you back in a little while as we get into the heart of things in the 2026 campaign. And if you're pursuing this and willing to have your services available, let's hope that candidates around the country and campaigns around the country pick up on this project. And
I want to say, now that I'm in my 60s, I just don't do as much door knocking and phone calling as I used to. And so I'd rather sort of use some of the skills I built up, or orchestrating a lot of feature films and composing. And, there's a lot of administrative stuff. And I love doing this stuff. And it's really fun, and I think it's really valuable. And so thank you so much for giving us a platform, Alan.
well, I lastly say, just for everybody too, and Cliff, obviously we're in a situation where we know that if you are a recent immigrant to the country and your household is not generally speaking English, there is a full force intimidation against anyone in your household thinking they have a right to vote in this country. And what you're doing is a heroic countervailing force against that. And I hope people on the call and campaigns around the country are aware of that. And thank you very much, Cliff Tasner.
Thanks, Alan. Good
And I'm
to
going to
see
do something I have to do, and this is like live TV, more than live TV. I have to duck down and make sure my computer is plugged in so I do not lose you, because we're about to hear from Jim McGovern. And so we are going to get that queued up as well, but bear with me for 1 second here. There, that was done correctly now. Okay, plugged in, and we are going to now hear from Representative McGovern. Representative McGovern, as I mentioned, he is the head of a congressional task force on hunger and poverty. And his work is not only recognized in the United States, but across the country as one of the leading, really, politicians in the world when it comes to addressing hunger in our modern industrialized technological society. And so Jim wanted to join us today. He wasn't able to, but he sent in this video, which is unique for PDA and for this call. So I have to get that. Oh boy, it's one of the open windows I know here. At least I thought it was. And I may need some guidance here in terms of how to find a shared document. I thought I had it open. That might be the problem. I didn't actually have it open. Here it is. You're going to hear
say hello
in
to
1
my
second.
friends at
Let me
PDA.
pause it.
Thank you.
Go back 10 seconds, and I got to go back and share. And here we go. And here we go. I apologize for that, folks, but back-to-back share screens was a little tricky for me to pull together. But Representative Jim McGovern.
I want to say hello to all my friends at PDA. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for keeping the faith and for continuing to be active on so many levels. Look, I just want to talk to you a couple of minutes about kind of what's happening in Washington with regard to food security and hunger issues.
I'm going to pause it, folks, because it's coming through in a choppy way. Mike Fox, how does that look? It's choppy, right?
Yeah, it works for me.
Well, I'm going to go back to the beginning. I think maybe what I need to do is just let it load up fully. I think I launched it a little quick after loading it. Just these software didn't seem to digest it properly. So again, I apologize. And from the start, Representative Jim McGovern.
I want to say hello to all my friends at PDA. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for keeping the faith and for continuing to be active on so many levels. Look, I just want to talk to you a couple of minutes about kind of what's happening in Washington with regard to food security and hunger issues. That's a train behind me because I'm in Worcester and I'm right in front of a train track. But in any event, we live in the richest country in the history of the world. 46 million people are hungry. And a few months ago, Republicans in their big ugly bill, they responded to that, not by enhancing the SNAP benefit, which right now is about, on average, $2.20 per person per meal, but by cutting it. They cut SNAP by $200 billion. That was their response. Those cuts will go into effect over the next several months into next year, and that will result in more people being hungry in the United States of America. And on top of all of that, Donald Trump is now threatening to withhold food assistance to people and using the shutdown as an excuse. By the time you hear this, he may have reversed course, or a federal judge may have interceded. But the idea that he's even threatening that is absurd. I think it's illegal. There is a contingency fund that right now has between $5 to $6 billion, billion with a B. The USDA also has the authority to be able to move money around to make up any shortfall if this thing goes on much longer. They are choosing deliberately to increase hunger in this country. They are weaponizing hunger. And I think that's disgusting. Look, if we can win some elections and change the political landscape here, we ought to be talking about how you end hunger once and for all. We ought to be talking about, again, increasing the SNAP benefit. We ought to be talking about how to get how to make it easier for people to have access to fresh and nutritious foods. We ought to be working with our farms, again, in an effort to make sure that the best food and the best nutrition is getting to the people most in need. We ought to be working with our medical institutions. I helped initiate a White House conference on hunger, nutrition, and health when Biden was president. Out of that conference came a roadmap to how you end hunger and promote better health in this country. I mean, we know what to do, and our hospitals ought to play a role. I mean, food is medicine. We ought to have food prescriptions. We ought to have medically tailored meals. We ought to be working with our hospitals to have them working with our local farmers, again, to provide the best food for their patients. We ought to do more in terms of putting food pantries in, where there are health clinics. We ought to be promoting cooking classes. We ought to be teaching our young kids in school how to cook, how to prepare meals. We ought to be tackling the issue of food waste. There are a million things that we need to do. Bottom line is this: hunger and food insecurity are political conditions. I mean, we have the money, we have everything we need, we know what to do. We lack the political will. And, and for those who say, well, we can't afford to do this right now, I would respond by saying we can't afford not to, because there's a cost to hunger. Hungry kids don't learn in school, and there's a cost to that. People who don't have access to good nutrition, end up developing all kinds of illnesses and chronic conditions that will last a lifetime, and will be incredibly costly. Workers who miss meals on a regular basis are less productive in the workforce. So to not do anything means that we're going to accumulate more and more costs in a whole variety of areas in the future. And, all this talk about, healthcare is so expensive. Well, if we can get the nutrition part of this right, we will control healthcare costs. Let's prevent people from getting diabetes. Let's prevent people from getting chronic illnesses. Let's help make it easier for people to get the nutrition they need to live a healthy life. I'm working on a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, you can follow up with my office, and we're happy to have a chat, or at some further point have a discussion. But it is insane that right now we are talking about whether the federal government is going to take away food from hungry people. Like, in what universe is that acceptable? What kind of cruel and sick person would even entertain such an idea? We need to come together as a community, as a country. We need to stand up to Donald Trump. We need to stand up to these right-wingers in Congress who are trying to decimate our food and nutrition programs. And we need to advocate for a better way. What's important as we look to the next election is reminding people not just what we're against, but what we're for. And I'll just close by saying to all of you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for not giving up. I mean, every day there's a million things coming at us. The news is not very good, and it's easy to feel hopeless and helpless. Well, you haven't fallen into that trap. You give me great hope, and I look forward to working with you in the future.
Oh, I'm sorry, everybody, that I believe that's where that cut off. Mike, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sorry about that. I might have actually cut the last second off, so I apologize. Obviously, very eloquent ending from Representative McGovern, and he's just a fantastic person, and he's actually had a huge influence on my tenure at PDA. One of the first meetings I had on Capitol Hill was once I had become executive director, the first trip I was there, and it's just Jim and I talking in his office. And let me just tell you this, folks, this guy knows the ropes of how the American political systems work. And Donna, I saw you put it hard up. I was going to maybe bring you forward and maybe hear your thoughts on this.
I changed my clothes after the Broncos won. In the last 10 seconds. Anyway, yeah, I mean, what he said is just so spot on, right? I mean, I would only add to it. We have, seniors in our community who are suffering to purchase food right at the moment. And I just don't get it. It's just horrifying. It's just horrifying to me that we would cut food benefits. I mean, if you could say, especially in this season, as temperatures get colder and utility costs get higher, and it just is a cruel thing to do. And I think he's so right about we have to talk what we stand for. And I was listening again to, and I know I mentioned her last week, to Miss Rachel's interview on CBS Sunday Morning a couple weekends ago, or last weekend. where she was talking about, not caring about what potential damage had been done to her career or whatever by speaking up for children, because hungry children in Gaza or hungry children in America are still hungry children, no matter where they are. And shame on, all of us who allow children to be hungry. 3-year-olds are 3-year-olds. And, that was so true and so real, that it's, to me, just mind blowing that even on the Republican side, so many are letting this happen. So we have to be very, very clear about what we're not going to allow happen. And, on our watch, on Jim McGovern's watch, and on the watch of so many great people, if we got to get some more progressives elected, right? Adelita Grijalva was a great win. She's got to be able to do work, right?
Right.
It's just the whole thing. We've got to stand up for one another, and I think we're going to start, but we got to be loud and proud, as the saying goes.
Yeah, as I said at the top, too, it takes all types of people and characters to make up the team that's going to be effective for us. But Jim McGovern, I think you could just tell from the video, that's all off the top of his head. There's no teleprompter in front of him as he's delivering that. Could not be more eloquent, and the just sort of almost both forceful and strong, and yet gentle and humble way in which he addresses us. And not the type of guy who jumps in front of the cameras and becomes a national celebrity. But what is his PDA score? Like 100+ every single time the questionnaire comes in. He's just absolutely spectacular.
One other thing, Alan, let me add one other thing that I was lucky enough many years ago to meet Senator George McGovern from South Dakota, because I was in South Dakota. I was living there, and I was a newspaper editor.
No relation, but he did get his political start working for the McGovern campaign, and then
I'm not surprised.
Yeah,
right. And I can't. There's a part of me, the story that George McGovern told me. I went to a book fair where he was signing the last book, I think, that he authored, and I was speaking to him about the childhood lunch program in schools, and I'll never forget the story he told me about how that came to be. When he and a Republican senator, I cannot remember now who he said it was, but they went down and watched lunch happening in a school lunchroom not too far from DC, so they didn't have to travel too far out of the Capitol, but into a poor area. And as the kids lined up for lunch, there were kids who sat at the table, and there were kids who lined up against the wall. And they wondered what was going on. And the kids sat at the table, they were opening their lunch box and their lunch kits and everything. And the kids who were lined up against the wall, Senator McGovern said, they went over and asked, why are you lined up against the wall? And the little boy looked down at his feet and said, because we don't have any food to eat. Those kids would stand lined up against the wall while other children ate, and then they'd all go outside to recess. And both Senator McGovern and the other senator agreed, one to the other, that would not be allowed to happen in this America. And the reason I'm telling us that today is not because it'd be surprising about McGovern. I also was lucky enough, and still I'm in touch with Senator Tom Daschle of South Dakota. And I was pretty close to Senator Mike Rounds when he was governor, because I reported on him when I was there. I'm pretty darn sure what South Dakota values are. I am pretty sure. And on the off chance that someone gets a message to Senator Thune in the United States Senate, Senator Thune, these are not South Dakota values. They are not. Doesn't matter which side of the party you're on. Senator Thune, I know when you ran, you defeated Daschle. You knew I didn't like it. There was no mistake in that. But you also know that Tom Daschle respects you, as he thought you were more of an institutionalist. And you're protecting the filibuster right now. So on the off chance one of you can get this too, or maybe they're listening. Who knows?
Right. And of course,
South Dakota knew better. So anyway, thanks, Alan.
No, for sure. And for people who don't know, Senator Thune, of course, is the I mean, look, the Congress has been so pliant, so completely on bended knee, both houses, the Republican caucuses. And Johnson gets more attention because there's just the assumption that there's the filibuster that the Republicans are going to, they have that as a barrier, and the House is so close in the numbers. There's so much focus on Johnson. Bethune is the head of the Senate. And when he did get elected, it was assumed to be a minor defeat for Trump, that Trump's preferred head of the Senate did not win, but he has not acted as Donna and all of us would wish he would, really on any occasion to date.
Yeah, I mean, if you could look at what Medicaid cuts do to South Dakota, I'm sure he's hearing from constituents because I know a good number of them still. I'm sure he is. Now he needs to listen, but he also needs to listen to that inner value in him that I think is still there. I really do believe that. I don't know what the fear of loss of power, I suppose. I don't understand the kind of power that would make you allow children in your own state, in your own city, in your own area to starve. That I don't understand.
Yeah, no, it's tough, and of course it's funny too because such a big portion of the Republican national sort of a coalition are Christian, but it just seems that they've accepted that they will go against Jesus's teaching and allow starvation because the churches they'll argue should be the people in charge of overseeing that in their communities, which is ridiculous because there's just no infrastructural means to operate that, and the only infrastructural means are things like school lunches and which is the greatest nutritional pro-nutritional project that happens in a day in day out in the country, and then of course SNAP payments, and the U.S. federal government has those institutional.
Yeah, have we all thought about that? What a young mom or dad going to the checkout counter was supposed to do, who was already just scraping by until yesterday? Have any of us thought about what that would feel like? I mean, some of us have felt it, some of us, and thank God most of us are empathetic enough to feel that. But I know many of our neighbors are too, and they're maybe afraid now to talk about, how things are changing. But wow, we've got to talk about it with neighbors as much as we can.
Absolutely, but now a federal judge did try to force the payments to continue.
Yeah.
And but I apologize. I got the reality got blurred out by the World Series as of my prep for this one question for this show. And I didn't get the chance today with the 3 segments to look it up.
And I apologize. I haven't seen yet it seems like there's been hourly updates on this, so I may not know whether or not they have somehow found money somewhere.
Yeah, and of course,
like
and sadly, and tragically, I mean, of course, but in any normal time, this would be like the top story in the country, and you can't even find it when you look at the top headlines.
Yeah, yeah,
right?
Exactly.
I mean, whatever, Kash Patel is firing somebody because of some craziness, which is due to his disorder, and the press is making it the top story. But this should really be, of course, a top story. I think a federal judge forced the payments to continue from the emergency fund, but then who knows if that was reversed or.
While doing it, do you think he follows all the federal judge's orders?
Yeah, there we go. Exactly.
Well, I mean, really, Alan, this guy abides by the law so far?
Well, I mean, about there've been a number of the things where he hasn't gone against when the courts have blocked him, but they find a way in time to proceed with what they want to do. But yeah, there's also been things where he has just simply not at all given a damn.
Yes, that's what's terrifying, and to put people through this on food and healthcare and housing and basic needs is it's just horrifying to me. And if we all don't agree on that, and I think most of us do, agree that, come on, okay, why don't you cut off all your salaries first, and then we'll see how long you all want to go.
Well, look,
which is not the direction to go. None of us want to argue that. We don't want them to go without their benefits either, but come on.
Look, for people who don't know, though, I should throw this in. There are lobbying groups of Christian churches in Washington who make the case of what I just sort of outlined. It got so penetrative of the political establishment that, and I know this from the great work of Susie Shannon that I partnered with her on, and something I wrote for The Nation, that the word poverty was not used in the Democratic Party platform during the Obama years, except in the passages about providing funding for churches to be able to combat poverty. So this is a big argument that churches make. And again, it completely contradicts the reality of what Jesus was about and getting food to poor people. But this is how people rationalize it, and it's insane because there's just no infrastructure there to feed all the people through that network.
Yeah, but illustrative of my earlier story about the German student agreeing that maybe we are understanding now a little bit more about how the world was operating in the 1930s. And about how, except that we have a much different world today than they had in the 1930s in terms of a lot of things, communications, the internet, just doing this with each other, in almost instantaneous time, right? But we're also sort of vulnerable in that regard too, at the same time, because of our dependence on same, right? So I'm a great advocate of all the paper, I want the local community papers to keep reporting, keep publishing, right? And to put things online, because I don't know that somebody's not going to restrict us further in some way or other.
It's crazy. And I know Mike Fox wants us to get to the PDA to-dos at the top of the hour. We're going to do that.
Oh, Fox always has to-dos.
He's fantastic that way. It's perfect. But just how this is all interconnected. I have been on a lot of media platforms that I normally am not. Usually on more political stuff. So I've watched a lot of baseball highlights over the past week and so. And TikTok, there's some new campaign that TikTok is making to appeal to parents to support TikTok. So they're talking about their educational uses of TikTok, the class supplementary work you can get on TikTok. There are ads that come across, and we have a situation where the youth have been watching TikTok, and now Larry Ellison of Oracle, whose whole career comes out of the worst wings of the CIA, right? Yeah. And information collection, is going to own TikTok, or at least have a kind of like editorial control over it, and CBS News and Paramount. And so, yeah, we got to keep
consolidation is happening top to bottom, right? Yeah. Top to bottom here in Denver, one of our most, I don't say liberal, but straightforward news channels, the most watched here, which has been an NBC outlet, is now being, they're all joining together. The CBS, not the CBS, the Fox News outlet is combining with, and I guarantee there will be some definite personnel changes, and we will lose some of the autonomy we had. If we had much, we had a little through that one media outlet. But I'm not sure how much of that will be retained after the first of the year. And it's frightening to me as a former journalist to know people don't read as much print journalism as they used to read. You ought to pay, if those of you who still have some community journalism available in your area, whether, here in Denver, Westward is a wonderful long-term community paper. We get the Sentinel newspaper, which does better than many, but there are many local papers still fighting to publish. And they don't have to be newspapers. They can be community newsletters, sometimes can be that source. I urge you to support them with not only your readership, but contribute. They'll love to hear from you. And we think those letters to the editor don't matter, and maybe not so much. Our Denver Post is like some of your major outlets have become. They're running a lot of press releases and not a lot of news because they've cut newsrooms too, but still you can get letters to the editor. And so anyway, I now will stop because Fox will be very angry with me.
I love you, Donna. Thank you so much. And we'll go to a stack. Yeah, thank you. And we'll go to a stack of everybody's comments and thoughts on all of the guests and the elections coming up right after we hear an update on our PDA to-dos from Mike Fox. Mike, take it away.
Nothing but love, Donna Smith. All right. I now get to do my favorite job of the week. Here come the thank yous. The following people have donated today. Thank you so much. Maggie and Charles and Dr. Bill. Good to have Dr. Bill in the house. Would love to hear something from him. And door knocking Edie, not only getting out and knocking doors, but likewise donating, double dipping like nobody's business. Thank you, Edie. And Susan and Woodrow and Hillary, as always, my sister here in Florida. and Anuja. I hope I'm sorry, it's backwards here. Matthew, and Joyce, and Patricia, and phone banker Michael double dipping, and phone banker Beverly double dipping, and phone banker Michael double dipping, and Thelma, and phone banker Beverly again triple dipping, and Jonathan, and phone banker William double dipping, and phone banker Erica double dipping, and Mark, and Woodrow twice. Thank you, Woodrow twice. And my brother Walt across the bay. Good to see you in the house, Walt. And phone banker Newland double dipping. And phone banker Dr. Sonneborn, as always, out in California, crushing it. And my across the bay sister, Linda, phone banker and head of our Greater Tampa chapter. Good to see you, Linda. And Lorna and Samuel, Stephanie, Shantae. Thank you, Shantae, doubly for your monthly contribution that you signed up for. And phone banker Lois double dipping, phone banker Mary double dipping, Lisa and Julian. Thank you all. Thank you all. You rock as much as those folks rock. We're still substantially short of our goal for this particular program, so please do. The link has been tossed in the chat. Hit that donation link, and or I want to thank the folks who have signed up to do an action shift. We are still 7 short of our goal for signing up to hit the phones with us. So please do. If you don't see the link in the chat, go to pdamerica.org and hit donate and or volunteer. Give us an hour or $1. Let's make some serious noise between now and closing of polls on Tuesday. During family time, we'll dive down even more into this. But for now, back to you, Alan.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fox. And we are going to go to the stack in a second. And really anything is open to discuss. We can talk about Cliff Tasner's project, Rodney Sadler, what he shared with us today and his thoughts on where things are in North Carolina, across the country and the world, and his campaign. And of course, the SNAP program, the threats. If anybody has the details about whether the federal judge calling for continuing the payments, what the status is that, of course, we can, if anybody wants to look that up on staff. And our chat has been enabled again. Thank you, Jim Langford. And thank you for the whole team in the background. And we'll go to the stack. And Diane Keene is top of the stack. So welcome, Diane. Please unmute. Diane,
Okay.
great.
Yes.
I can hear you. Yeah.
My opinion on this whole government thing, and nobody's mentioned it, is that they're keeping it has nothing to do with the money. It has nothing to do with what they want people to starve or not. I personally believe that the whole thing is related to the Epstein files. If they open up the government, they will have the votes to demand the Epstein file be released by the GOP, and Trump does not want that. That's my 2 cents.
I agree 100%. And actually, Diane, keep with us. What is it about that you feel it makes it so central? Is it a story that you follow closely? Is it that Trump's
because of the last person, they're not swearing in the last representative Democratic that would call the vote and have the numbers to demand the Epstein files. And Trump is terrified of the Epstein files. He's trying to divert everything away from that. And he thinks this is going to do it, but I don't believe it will.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that point. And I think you're right about the moment we're in. And it's crazy to see this candidate where, PDA was really the leading national organization to really back that campaign. Of course, there were much union support, but we were really, really behind that. Alita Grijalva campaign. Natalie, of course, was a guest here multiple times. And to, it's getting international news. And, people are astonished at Johnson's refusal to seat her. But thank you, Diane Keene. And
you're welcome.
And on to Carly. Carly, please unmute.
Hey guys, sorry. I just wanted to ask if Representative Jim, if anyone knew his contact information, because a lot of what he said, I'm all for as well. Because cutting down on food waste, it will also help with the food insecurity price concept. Those two are actually 2 issues that go hand in hand for me. And my thought process is the more food gets eaten by people who need it, the less waste we produce, because all the waste because 40 to 50% of food wasted in America in America that we produce is wasted. So that means 40 to 50% of the resources used to make that food also gets wasted.
Yes, I mean, Jim, let me see if I can do this efficiently while you're here. We, of course, have contacts in Representative McGovern's office. We have a very strong network in his region. And so, of course, the response to constituents and non-constituents is always a little different. But the staff members, if you just do a Google search of contact info for Representative Jim McGovern, you'll both get a phone number for his Capitol Hill office. As a non-constituent, you don't want to call his local office. So you'd want to call his Capitol Hill office. And I'm not sure that the people who we were just in touch with this past week really are the best people, because they were the people who facilitated getting our video. But we had two people who worked for his out of office operation that we were in touch with. And of course, we know the people in office. But if you call the office switchboard and get a person during business hours on Capitol Hill, they will pick up at his front desk and you can ask the best person to speak to. I think the people who we were in touch with this week were really the people who would like produce a video for him and get it to us. So I don't think they're the right contacts. But I, of course, do have other contacts inside his office. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but I hope that's adequate, Carly. So if you just look for the Capitol Hill number for Jim McGovern's office, give it a call.
Susan Gilbert just got that in there, so I just got that in there, so I'll find time to write it down or look it up on Capitol Hill's website or something like that.
And if it doesn't work too, by the way, like by next week in Family Time, let us know. The fantastic organizer in Massachusetts, Susan Siegel, different Susan, PDA organizer, facilitated this for us. So again, as I've had many contacts with Rep McGovern's office, but I wasn't the person who set this up and haven't been in touch with people there for a couple of years, and there's a lot of turnover. So thank you, Carly, and keep us up to date on how that goes. Heidi,
got it. Thank you. I will.
Thank you so much. Yes, and by all means, with your work, Carly, as an activist, I think it'd be great for you to coordinate with their office. That'd be fantastic. Heidi, please unmute.
Great. Good to talk with you. I'm kind of disappointed that we didn't get to talk to Jim McGovern himself, because I miss him. He's a friend of mine from Massachusetts. I met him at Joe Moakley's. He was one of his friends that he went down to do all that work in South and Central America with Oscar Romero. And he just was one of the most welcoming congressmen I've ever met, and his people listened to me, even though I wasn't his local representative. He saw me as somebody that was really on the right side of history for him. And I know there's so much more I want to say.
Yeah, no, he's fantastic. And he could join us. I think he ended up with a direct conflict on his schedule at this time.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he's such a fantastic guy. I started out saying that, this first meeting I ever had with him, he told me something that has completely influenced my work here at PDA and gave me a real sense of guidance. And let's just say the Congressional Liaison Program is a product of that conversation. And he's just very, very insightful about the way American politics operates. So his formal analysis of it in terms of when you get into a position that I was honored and I'm honored to have landed in at PDA, his understanding provided me a lot of direction for how to navigate Capitol Hill and the federal government. So fantastic guy. Thank you so much, Heidi, for your thoughts there. Michael, how you doing? Please unmute.
Hi guys, can you guys hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. So a great meeting. Just a few quick points. I used to live in Fairbanks, Alaska, believe it or not, and 2,000 people showed up at the New Kings rally. 2,000 people, and Fairbanks has got like 60,000 people, the whole region, and that's a really deep red area. The Democrat won the mayor's election for the first time in I don't know how many years. And number two, I keep pointing out we're paying for the Reagan era. I'm an Army veteran. I got a full set of benefits for the when I was in the Army. I get killer benefits now. Everybody should be getting those benefits. Everybody that works should be getting housing, food, education, vacation time. The President of the United States works for us. He's our employee. He gets a full set of benefits. So what should we all be getting, class? We spent $3 to $6 billion on these wars, which we forget about now in Iraq and Afghanistan. We were lied into these wars. My father was a war vet. He's still pissed off about the war. It's deceased now. So we have the money to give these benefits out to people. The Democratic Party rocks. I do think we're going to win elections. Stay positive. Everybody's doing a great job. I have some health issues myself. Otherwise, I do more volunteering, but I do give my money every month to the organization. Everybody rocks. Let's keep our spirits up. That's all I get.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Well, thank you for the message and everything you said. I mean, yes, here, indeed. Peter Deutsch, how you doing, Dr. Deutsch? Please unmute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I've lost my ability to use a credit card for a week or two. I shut it down and I'm starting it up. So in the meantime, I gave $250 to Progressive Democrats of America through the mail challenges, through the mail channels. Also, McGovern had a strong session on the Iron Dome a few months ago. He worked that one and really raked it over the coals. And finally, I've heard that that SNAP is actually the successor to food stamps. That's what it really is.
Yes.
I'm done.
Yes. Thank you. If any staff member has a moment, can somebody maybe research to see a federal judge a couple days ago, I think, made a ruling, I think on the 30th, and the SNAP benefits were going to stall as of Saturday, November 1st. In other words, not just cuts to SNAP. While the government was shut down, nobody was going to receive any benefits for November. And I think that a judge forced that to go forward. If anybody can update that. Now, I could have gotten my information wrong. So whatever people can find there.
I think you mean they're not paying them. That's what my understanding is.
No, but that a judge did something to make sure that the emergency
they had to pay them out of the emergency funds? I thought it tossed back and forth that day.
Oh, it did.
Alan, I've got an article here from BBC, dated
cool.
the 31st of October, says the Trump administration cannot suspend food aid used by 42 million low-income Americans during the U.S. government shutdown. 2 federal judges have ruled. Ruling said the government must pay for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program SNAP benefits, also known as food stamps, using emergency funds.
Thank God. Thank you, Jim.
Unless somebody has overturned that, which the courts have been basically ruling and then overturning the next day. So, but I don't see anything.
Yeah, I see Fox's comment too, and that always scares me. Is you still don't trust that he'll follow the law.
Yeah, I mean, generally, yeah, he'd have to intervene in what would be it really is like a light on or light off. Do these payments go out type of process?
Or have Elon intervene or whoever over there, right? Whoever's left to flip the switch.
I mean, it would be, of course, we would know very soon.
I would think the grocery industry would not like that either.
Yeah. So a lot of people.
You think? I thought about a lot of businesses that might be putting just a tad bit of pressure on those boys.
Right, and of course, these are geographically concentrated places where poverty is found, and so in small town rural America, right?
You think Walmart was quiet about it?
Yeah, and also food deserts. Well, Walmart may have the barrier to absorb it, but in the food deserts in urban core where so few businesses provide food to begin with, it would be devastating to those businesses. Where there's deep poverty, and of course the non-Walmart businesses across rural and small town America. But yeah, you're right. I suppose there is a mildly more liberal wing of the Walton family too. Maybe they chimed in. Edie, you're up. Thank you. And by the way, thank you, Jim Langford. Thank you so much as always, man. Spot on.
Hi, everybody. It's Edie. I remember when I was younger being alone with the kids needing SNAP. But I was going to say, so many people think that people on it don't deserve it. If they meant they raised the minimum wage, there'd be less need for it. But you shouldn't need 2 jobs just to make your rent.
Thank you, Edie.
He didn't mention raise the minimum wage. It's still at 7 something.
It's crazy. 7.25. He of course fully supports that. And I know that there are going to be Senator Sanders is going to be pushing his bill in the Senate, which I think has a parallel bill in the House to raise the minimum wage. Of course, it's not going to get adequate support.
Not with these people.
Right. But I know that some of our allies, including the One Fair Wage, who we're working very closely with at PDA, Saru Jayaraman was on the show about 2 months ago, and they're pushing both a federal campaign to raise the minimum wage, and also in city by city around the country in the places where there's real possibilities of it getting raised that it hasn't been raised yet. But in Edie, this Florida, Missouri, states that either are now pretty deeply red or trending red, so to speak, Republican, have passed statewide initiatives to do that. In some of those states, though, the business roundtables, et cetera, have what's it called? The Chamber of Commerce. They've challenged it in courts and blocked it up, which is absurd. So federal minimum wage pass would, of course, be the thing that we'd really want to work for nationally. But also there are measures around the country, and we at PDA support all of those. Thank you, Edie. Jim, you're up. Jim Dorincott, please unmute. Jim, please unmute. One more time, Jim, please unmute. And we're going to jump over to Mimi. Mimi, you're up. Please unmute.
I got it now. It finally came up. It just came up.
Okay, Mimi, if you can hold off, let's let Jim go, and then Mimi.
Yeah. So thank you. As a Vietnam vet, I was wanted to learn a little bit more about what's going on in terms of Venezuela, and there's a major military base in Puerto Rico which is being revamped. It had shut down for 20 years. There's some really serious imperialistic plans at play here. And I'd point out a couple things. The ruling class here has never hesitated to flood this country with drugs, going back to Iran-Contra, and in Afghanistan, some of my brothers and sisters were guarding the poppy fields, and the painkillers, oxy, whatever it's called. The other thing is just the pictures of the boats. Those are outboard motors. Remember in the old days, the outboard motor that, just paddled along? Mm-hmm. Those were going to make it to the United States. Well, I've seen one figure that it would have to be refueled 20 times in order to make it there. So it's absurd on the face of it. And I'm happy to I've been bringing this up on buses like we used to do in the 60s and get discussions going. And almost everybody is not fooled by this. And that's really encouraging that they're not being fooled, but there's no united opposition to it yet. So I think it's possible for us to hopefully stop this. It will be a disaster for South America, Central America, and for all the things that we care about in PDA. So
hold on a second, Jim. Let's hold on this a second. And Mimi, thank you for your patience. This is hugely important, of course. I think that Jim is right. Because of the Trump administration's strategy, which I think Bannon has pointed out was something they were going to go for clearly in the second term, and they're doing it. to just have chaos, just flood the zone constantly with the Project 2029 domestic stuff, and then around the world, every day some almost just guardrail shattering action taken by the Trump administration. And of course, this is now the Venezuela threat of an invasion of Venezuela, the murder, straight up murder of people in these boats Jim referred to, which is absolutely against the law, and it's just pretty much criminal murder. But as people know, the Supreme Court basically granted the president the right to do that. Late in the Biden term, they had a ruling that Trump is now taking advantage of the idea that whatever he takes is an action of the president's above the law. But there's going to be, my understanding, and I think the guy's last name is Anton. Is that right? Mark Anton? I might be getting that wrong. The guy who's sort of in charge of I'm getting it wrong. That's not the right name. Of the Trump administration's foreign policy vision. And the next week, they're supposed to release, every 4 years, an administration releases its vision for U.S. foreign policy. And it's my understanding that that is pretty much complete and about to be released. And it's my understanding it's going to represent a contradistinction to the Obama administration's quote unquote pivot to China. While there's going to be a lot of anti-Chinese saber rattling going on, it's also going to basically represent a declaration and an affirmation of a Monroe Doctrine #2, that the entire Western Hemisphere is going to be announced as the orbit of the United States to dominate and control. I know this sounds, maybe hyperbolic, but I've heard that in a few places. And there's a very good article that was done by John Bellamy Foster. He was on Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! About U.S. foreign policy and the Trump doctrine. And he spoke about this, and he spoke about the guy who's the central figure in the foreign policy brain trust of the Trump administration, going to take sort of all this sort of contradictory behavior and try to, tie it up into something that's going to come across as a unified foreign policy doctrine. And it's supposed to be coming out in the next week or so. It's my understanding, and it's gonna really heighten this idea of the domination of the Western Hemisphere. And of course, that just makes it all the more clear that this Venezuelan activity is not an outlier, but central to their planning. Anyway, Jim, any thoughts on what I just said there?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. That's really important. And I also just want to point out, that the revolution in Venezuela has been very nonviolent. They cut poverty in half. They brought literacy rates up. I mean, starting with Chavez from like 30% to 70%. Really kind people. And I hate it when this country uses the ruling class in this country smashes that kind of goodwill. And especially as a veteran who went in to defend democracy, it's really offensive to me, and I hope it's offensive to everybody else.
It sure is. What part of the country are you in, Jim?
I'm in San Francisco.
Okay, cool. Hey, well, Jim, thank you for all your thoughts, and yeah, we're going to have to stay on top of this in a big way at PDA. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
And Mimi, you're up. Thank you for your patience, Mimi.
Of course, no problem at all. And I appreciate your analysis, Alan, always. And thank you so much, Jim and Michael and all the other vets here. It's really outstanding to hear from you, and just much respect and thank you for your service. I wanted to let you all know quickly that on the 5th of November, there is a big Refuse Fascism rally in Washington, D.C., and they're planning buses all throughout the Northeast. They're based in New York City. Their website is refusefascism.com. They're putting an emphasis on veterans, so anyone who can get out there, please do so. And that would be amazing if PDA could do an email blast to folks on the East Coast. I'm in California as well, as many people know, so I probably won't make it out there. I can't fly yet, right? So thank you so much, everyone.
November 5th. So November 5th is 3 days from today, right?
Yep. So I heard about this
the day after the election.
And it's
Yes.
also midweek in terms of people getting to DC from elsewhere. That's a tough day to
Yes.
organize something for.
There's also a huge remove the regime march, coalition march on the 22nd that I sent emails to the meat advisory to PDA leadership last week, I think, when you were possibly out, Alan, because I got an email back to me, but I did hear back from Mike Hirsch. So if you all could definitely, and that's going to be several days of action, visiting congressional offices, and that's remove the regime. And I'm forgetting if that's a com or an org, because I'm looking at a Fight Fascism email right now. So I'll put in the chat. I'll look it up.
Fight Fascism is maybe conspicuously placed on Guy Fawkes Day. So if anybody spends any time in England, it's
yes, British folks like me, British American. Thank you so much, Alan. Thanks, everybody.
Sure.
Blessings.
Sure, thank you. Sure thing. Of course, thank you, Mimi. And people look out for that information. And Kay McGowan, please unmute.
Hi. I've been toying around with this idea, and I just, because I'm not a governmental scholar, and the longer the shutdown goes on, I'm getting concerned about the Democrats' messaging on this. I know that the healthcare thing I'm all for, but I think it can happen in both places. The Senate, it's not going to happen with my senators, but I could have my congresswoman propose a bill in the House, even though they're not in session, regarding trying to get through a new bill that the legislators would not be paid during the shutdown. I think that would be a positive way of messaging as people get a little more upset about the shutdown continuing on. So I don't know if I haven't contacted my congresswoman yet, but if there's an ability to do that, or people think that might be something that could work, Ro Khanna is always a good, stead to do something like that. I think it would go over better with the American people who are opposed to the shutdown.
And who is your congressperson?
Madeleine Dean.
Remind me what district that is?
Pennsylvania 4, southeastern Pennsylvania.
Right.
He's very proactive. Well,
yeah, no, it certainly would be a popular suggestion. Have you seen anybody propose it this time around? I mean,
I haven't. I don't know. Maybe some other people have heard. I know, I see a lot of posts on Facebook from family and friends, about how they're continuing to get paid. And that's irritating to a lot of people, including myself. So
right, for sure.
That's just my point.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to proceed on this, I don't know that we'll take a lead initiative on it. We are involved in developing legislation on a number of fronts. One thing I do know that there's some much more relevant to the immediate moment stuff than what I'm about to cite. But I do want to let people know that with Jamie Raskin's office, we'll be doing two resolutions relating to Thomas Paine's the release of Common Sense in early January. But I do think it's relevant if anybody's read that pamphlet that was so instrumental in sparking the American Revolution. If you actually look at it now, it really resonates because it is on balance an argument against monarchy in general. And so it very much fits the No King's Day. But that's the kind of thing where what you're proposing would be like a resolution, contacting an office and seeing if somebody would put forward, or maybe, and what you'd want to try to do is build up as much support for it as possible. But again, the House isn't in session. How to get it put forward with anything that is but I like the idea a lot. So I mean, I'll keep my eyes open for anything, and if you can do that as well, contact us at PDA staff at Alan at pdamerica.org, info@pdamerica.org, and again, forgive me here, Mike Fox, in case I miss it, just forward it to me, then Mike Fox at pdamerica.org. And if you make any movement out or see anything happening, certainly a pretty good idea. Thank you so much there. And Now over to got it at the top of the stack here. Lois Prue, please unmute.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that as far as Mike Johnson goes, I think it was last week I was listening to an influencer on TikTok. I can't remember her name, but she suggested that we call Mike Johnson's phone number, and when the voicemail comes on, that we leave a message saying to him, basically, please reopen the government, swear in Adelita Grijalva, and if you don't do those things, we'll know that you're in the Epstein files. And I thought that was a good idea, but I don't know if he's listening to his messages. I mean, I don't think he personally is, but maybe his staffers are listening to the
You mean
messages.
that just to clarify, you mean that Johnson himself is in the Epstein files?
Right, right.
I think he's actually being bullied by somebody who's being in the Epstein files. I mean, he could be, who knows? But he seems both a little young and a little have been too uninfluential back when Epstein was still operating. But maybe, yeah, certainly Trump was. But yeah, I mean, he's certainly the main guy to contact. And I mean, so have you organized people doing this, or are you doing it?
I'm doing it myself.
Mm.
I haven't organized anybody to do it, but I could.
Well, again, maybe the message would be a little different from how I think of it, but yeah, certainly flooding his office. But he's probably getting flooded already, but we should keep flooding it. So it's a good idea again, and keep us up to date, okay?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And up next is Lynn, who I know I owe a call to. Lynn, how you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thanks, Alan. A month from today, December 2nd, is the special election in Tennessee 7 with Afton Bain, who we support and endorse. We're hoping she wins and takes that seat, so we get one more seat immediately in the House. That would be a good outcome.
Immediately, given if Johnson's willing to ever see her.
Well, and here's that's my point.
Yeah.
It's going to be a really interesting election to watch, in my opinion, because Afton wins and then we get another seat if he seats her, or she loses, the Republican wins. And then what's Mike Johnson gonna do? Is he going to seat the Republican from Tennessee and not seat Adelita? Is he going to avoid seating anyone? That's, I think, an opportunity to pressure him. And I don't think he'll have much of a choice if he swears in that Republican winner and has to swing. So I just thought that was something worth bringing up and watching December 2nd, a month from today. Thank you for letting me talk.
Thank you. And just to clarify, it's not like they balance each other out. What Johnson is doing is not seating Grijalva because she would be the 218th person to sign the demand for the release of the files. And that particular congressional maneuver, which I believe our buddy Ro Khanna, by the way, is now scheduled to be back with us on the 23rd of November. And he still apologizes for not being on last week, which was the original date was targeted for his return. His office, I think more than Massey's, but in coordination with the Republican, Republican, it's fair to say, with the greatest amount of integrity in the House these days, from I think Kentucky, he and Roe put forward this, I forget what it's called, a petition to release information or something. I'm getting the word wrong. I'm forgetting what the right word is. And the way that procedure works is there are 435 voting members of the House, and it just needs to reach 218. If you have the majority of the House demanding this, you get it. So 217 doesn't work, and you don't need 219. So he would have as much motive to not seat Grijalva if the Republican wins in Bain's district. Yeah, I actually think, yeah, it'll be very telling, as you're saying. I bet you he just doesn't see either, if that's his only way of preventing it from happening. And that would go then to the Democrat, who's going to win in the Houston District 2 in early December. So they're just going to try to block the release of these files. Okay, Nina, you're up. Thank you so much, Lynn.
Okay, yes, I'm back. Thank you for having me. Losing my voice with all the phone banking I'm doing. Yes, I did leave a message from Mike Johnson on his voicemail in DC. As well, I just sent a letter based on the information that was in the chat. So hopefully that'll go through. Also, if there's another list that neither Mike or Mary can send to me, I'll do another Virginia list by the morning tomorrow before the Tuesday day in. Those rallies yesterday were just amazing. All afternoon, I was watching between Obama doing Virginia and New Jersey. So I'm excited. I know we're confident we'll take Virginia. Nervous about New Jersey. I don't know why. I'm getting mixed. I don't know. I hope she takes it because those people can be a little funny there. But I hopefully we'll take all of it. So I'm ready to go. I'm fired up. I'm so fired up.
Fantastic, Nina Singer. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's true that the Democratic nominee for the governor in New Jersey is not assisted in the same way as the Democratic nominee in Virginia in terms of having a completely off the charts sort of fire-breathing MAGA Republican nominee. And the New Jersey person is a little more measured and hence considered more competitive. But we are hopeful in both of those races. But Spanberger seems to have opened up a significant lead in Virginia. I'm going to put in the link right now the article I referred to by John Bellamy Foster, who is and it's a monthly review. So this is a what I sometimes refer to as the liberal or humanist Marxist journal. If people aren't familiar with monthly review, first ever article ever published in monthly review was "Why Socialism" by Albert Einstein, and Einstein was already a massive, world icon. In fact, one of the crazy things about the McCarthy period is there were certain people that, in terms of iconography, they couldn't go after, but it sure as that could have gone after Einstein. Not that he was connected to the U.S. Communist Party, because he wasn't, but he certainly was a socialist. And this is a great article. I just put it in the chat. And I was right. The guy's name is Michael Anton, and he is the central figure in the Trump administration who's trying to take these, disparate threads that oftentimes come across as contradictory and put bows and ribbons on it and turn it into a cohesive foreign policy. And the articles are very good. The Trump doctrine and the new MAGA imperialism, and it focuses on this guy Anton. And yeah, he's everything we would never want to see in such a powerful position. Susie Henry, you're up next. Please unmute, Susie.
Hi, I'm Susie Henry from Beulah, Colorado, and I want to answer that lady's question about threatening the senators and congressmen to not take their salary. Michael Bennett is one of our senators. He is not taking his salary. We email some, and then if we capitulate on this and Trump gets his way, healthcare will be completely obliterated. I just can't believe that he would do it, but I think he would, because I heard about the SNAP. There's 2 judges that says they have to pay it. Well, now he's come back and said, well, it's going to take a while to get it organized and sent out. So he can hold it for a month. But that's a whole month. But on the ups, before he can get it out. He didn't say month, but he said it would take a while. I'm hoping it's not more than a month. And I went to cooperative care Friday because there were 10 churches in Pueblo that collected Feed the 5,000, and we put the items on the shelves. It looks like they will be able to serve a few. I know they don't have SNAP, but people that are on SNAP can probably go to cooperative care and get things. I live in Beulah, which is a very small town. We have a food bank in our community. They put out a letter Thursday saying that they were running out, and yesterday I got an email back saying, stop for right now. You can make donations, but we've got food. So if people will just do community activities, we can still help these people on SNAP. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And Susie, quickly, you mentioned that you emailed to the senator. Are you in an email dialogue with Senator Bennett?
Well, yes, I send him letters and he sends me, it's just, what are they? They're mass mailings, I'm
Oh,
sure.
form letters. Okay, yes.
Yeah.
And then along that point, I ask because we actually have a few PDA activists across the country who have literally, a lot of Americans, especially with Congress people, state assembly people, legislatures, people think they won't get a direct dialogue with people. And of course, it's tougher with the senators. They have generally larger constituent base. But you meet these people, you get in a dialogue with them, and you end up in a dialogue with them. I'm privileged to have that with, of course, a few Congress people, but I understand I'm in a privileged position to have that happen for me. But
Correct.
we have individual PDA members who at night are, talking to other Congress people. They just end up being the person that they have this ongoing dialogue with. And that kind of human touch connection is something that we certainly encourage everybody to approach these folks, oftentimes who they do want to hear back from people, and they don't have the opportunity to because, people are just thinking that would never happen. Again, some of these dialogues we have with our Congress people among PDA activists, really pretty amazing and surprising. And it provides us with great access, great information. And sometimes, by the way, these are not the most allied politicians. Sometimes they're moderate Democrats who might be good on a few issues, and yet somehow, even on issues where the constituent disagrees with them, they've been able to maintain an ongoing dialogue, and that's very important. Really, the way our representative democracy has failed us, and I think, of course, big money has played a big part in this. Keeping the distance between us and our representatives so far apart. It's really, very, very not operating the way the system is supposed to operate. And the amount of feedback that representatives get from their constituents is much, much more marginal than it should be if we're going to actually have a functioning representative democracy in a good sense. So we encourage all that kind of contact. And thank you, Susie. Melissa, you're up, and then Mary, and then we're going to go to family time, folks. So Melissa.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Oh, so I have been calling my senators and representatives and doing all I should do. But I just want to encourage people to participate in the don't buy anything on the Black Friday thing. If you don't need it, don't buy it. And also I wish I could go to the one on the 22nd. Will there be a Zoom remove the regime?
On the 22nd of November?
Yeah.
Mike Fox, do you know what Melissa might be referring to, or
Yeah,
Melissa, can you explain?
that's what Mimi was talking about. Mimi, if you know of a Zoom, toss it in the chat.
Was that the 22nd or the 12th?
22nd.
Yeah. And I've signed up to volunteer.
Okay. The 22nd would be a Saturday. And of course, it's the anniversary of Kennedy's assassination. Yeah, whatever people can put in the chat, please do. And Mary Maloney, you're up. Please unmute.
Sorry, I clicked the wrong button. Okay. Yeah, I wrote to Gillibrand and got back a response about Vought, Russell Vaught's nomination. So it was from the Wayback Machine, March 5th.
Wow.
Yeah, sorry. But it was with PDA, I believe, during the Click Brigade works.
Well, yeah, I mean, she's a I obviously was incredibly frustrated with her. I don't know why she felt compelled to not. I mean, there's many reasons, but
It looks like a cut and paste.
yeah. Well, she refused to endorse Mamdani. She held out on that.
Yeah, she's gonna lose her seat.
Who's she gonna lose her seat to, do you think? And when is she up again? You know?
I'll have to Google it.
It's either 28 or 30.
Yeah, it's because next year is gonna be we're gonna focus on Kathy Hochul seat. That's the only reason why Kathy Hochul endorsed last minute.
Yeah, I figured as much. And Kathy Hochul is gone. For people who don't know, as a product of the era where New York City went bankrupt in the 1970s, the New York City budget and things like tax increases of any type need to be approved of in the city of New York, need to be approved of by the state legislature and the governor. And while Kathy Hochul did, unlike Schumer and Gillibrand, but like Jeffries, and much earlier than Jeffries, to give her that amount of credit. Though again, I think it's totally a matter of her reading the tea leaves for her own political future. Came out and supported Mamdani. Nobody expects her to support the tax increases, which are very marginal. And the most important one, say for the pay for the child care, is just for New Yorkers making salaries or income above $1 million. And by the way, people may think that's a small group of people. And in most cases, it is in terms of an annual income of $1 million. It's not that small a group of people in New York City. And so it's an important increase that would pay for the affordable or even universally free childcare. I think that's the designation. It's not the buses for that particular tax, but it's expected that Hochul will veto that and or not support it. And so that's the way that Hochul is going to be very, very important for Mamdani going forward. And of course, while of course the Democrats in New York, and of course there could be a lot of pressure on Democrats up in Albany to support Mamdani because it's understood that the hugely anti-Mamdani impacts are going to come from the Trump administration, which we all are going to anticipate, assuming Mamdani, and knocking on wood, that Mamdani can win this race on Tuesday, which will be a spectacular thing. In fact, I expect much of New York City to feel like Los Angeles felt last night when the Dodgers won, when Mamdani wins. Michael Seeley, you've snuck in, but you're absolutely the last person that we're going to go to before we go to family time. What's on your mind, Michael Seeley? Please unmute. Okay, you're unmuted, Michael.
Am I still here?
Yep, you're here. I can hear you,
Okay.
Michael.
Well, as a Californian, I was concerned about Prop 50, but now that it seems nailed down according to all the polls, I wondered, well, what should I be doing? And I've made some Mamdani calls, but I'm very concerned about the Virginia legislature or House of Assembly. And there's we got to nail that down in order to make sure the redistricting goes through to counterbalance what's going on with Texas and Indiana and so on. So I hope if people have free time, they might look at, there's some good progressives running in marginal seats, including Elizabeth Guzman in the metropolitan Washington area, who was the former chair of Bernie, the chair for Bernie in 2020. And there's other people you could look up on Ball, University of Virginia, Crystal Ball, just Crystal Ball, Virginia legislature, Virginia, find some details, and maybe you can connect with somebody like Elizabeth or another good progressive.
Thank you. You broke up a little bit there. But yes, absolutely. Virginia is hugely important. And of course, the one race which is statewide that is expected to be very close there is the Attorney General, because of stupid, actually pretty darn stupid email exchanges and texts he had that were dug up from his past. Not right-wing leaning, so to speak, like what happened with the candidate in Maine, but just being satirical and ironic about advocating for violence, uh, but doing that in a stupid way even, and so those have been dug up, and that's considered a close race. This is a candidate who we did endorse in the primary as a progressive, the Attorney General. So we are hopeful that in spite of how stupid he was in his effort to be poignantly comic 10 years ago, he can win that election, and we're working for that as well. What do I think of Graham Plattner? Look, I think time's going to tell on this right now. I certainly I was shaken up around Plattner with the tattoo. I know a lot of people in the former Yugoslavia and the history of the Croatian pro-Nazi forces in World War II, and I don't know. That was ugly to see that he had a relationship to that kind of iconography on his body for a long time, until recently, and because up until that point I had been largely quite impressed. And then of course other things have surfaced since then about stuff he's posted online. So time will tell. I actually, up until that point, I was pretty darn offended by the Democratic Senate campaign committee instantly endorsing his opponent in the primary. And we'll see how it plays out. And I think the response of the people in Maine is really going to provide our guidance, I think, at PDA as we look at that race, given the trickiness of all that's transpired. He certainly was saying fantastic things and continues in terms of his progressive messaging. So yeah, important race there. Yeah, somebody put something in the chat I was going to go to before I go to Mike Fox and sign off, and I'm a little bit fuzzy headed here. Again, I wasn't even really rooting for the Dodgers, but I got wrapped up in the enthusiasm, and champagne was uncorked and everything around out on the street here, actually, on my own street, and it was very fun last night. I'm a little weary from it, and yeah, I can't remember what it was in the chat I was going to say, but thank you to everybody, and Mike Fox. I of course want to thank Reverend Rodney Sadler, candidate for the House. I forget what it's called in North Carolina. Well, for the state assembly, and from Mecklenburg County. That sounds like such an exciting campaign because such a brilliant candidate. I want to thank Donna Smith, Mike Fox, Jim Langford, Susan Gilbert, Mike Fowler, the whole PDA team behind the scenes that pulls this off. I want to thank Cliff Tasner and his project that we highlighted, multilingual communications out, supporting progressivism and candidates and campaigns. And that's something to keep in mind going forward. And then lastly, of course, Representative Jim McGovern, great fan of PDA. From the PDA heartland, as it were, because Tim Carpenter was living in Northampton, Massachusetts, though that's a little west of Jim McGovern's district, and really been part of the PDA family since our foundation. So thank you, everybody, and we'll be back next week when, again, our scheduled guest, not 100% confirmed, is Representative Cori Bush, who is going to run for Congress again in 2026 as a progressive Democrat in Missouri 1. And again, we'll have an update on Reverend Sandler's campaign next week, and everything else that's going on. We will pay attention to the Venezuelan situation closely, and that'll be the feature of our discussions soon. And thank you, everybody. Mike Fox, take it away over to Family Time.